I'm Nick.
And I'm Sadie. I'm Zoe.
And
it's just a Honda Todd.
Yes, it is. And we are coming to you from Boise, Idaho. And it is snowing pretty fierce today. And that's one of the reasons why we're here. So I figured what better time to do the reveal and to do an episode than while I put these two to work and get them shoveling the driveway. And on this week's episode, I'm going to do the reveal of what the successor is to my Honda Accord. And so on this episode, I plan on going over several factors that impacted why I made the decision that I did on what car I selected. And then going to go ahead, do the reveal, do a quick overview of what the car is, and then give some initial impressions of the new car versus the Honda Accord. So the first thing before we get to the reveal is that I'd like to say thank you so much to everyone that is subscribing to the channel and continuing to subscribe. We just hit 3,000 subscribers over the last week, and that is just mind-boggling to me. I never really expected that many people to be too interested in what I'm doing or how I'm working on the car, but got a plane flying over my head. But I guess something that I've been doing on the channel has been going right. Got a lot of great feedback from people over the last couple of weeks about how helpful the content has been, and that's really awesome to hear. So thank you so much to spending your time checking out the channel and for all the great feedback that you've been providing. Much appreciated. Second piece of housekeeping is that over the last 48 hours, I've gotten to wear the hat of an online retailer and gotten to see what life is like doing that full-time for a couple of days. I have gotten so much interest in the parts that I sold for my Honda Accord, so really appreciate everyone's patience with me while I've been figuring this out, figuring out shipping and logistics and all of that. But almost everything is sold at this time. There's just a couple of parts left, so thank you so much. And it's going to be awesome because that money is literally going right into the next car. I've already ordered a lot of accessories for that, and have some plans on to how I'm tweaking that to fit my style. So as far as the reveal goes, I'm going to just touch on what factors played a role into making my decision, and then talk about a couple of the finalists, and then ultimately which one did I end up selecting. So I'll go ahead and just talk about what does the landscape look like for buying cars. If you have not been looking for a car recently, it is fierce. With regards to new cars, there is very little on the lots. And if you're wanting to buy a new car, chances are you're probably going to have to order it directly from the manufacturer. You may have to pay a premium in the form of a dealer markup. It could be thousands of dollars. And as far as lead times go, you could be looking at anywhere from 60 days to 6 months, depending on the type of car you're looking for. So it's pretty crazy, but those are the times we're at. On the used car side, it's also equally fierce. You're seeing prices on used cars run for more than what these cars stickered for brand new. If you saw my last episode, I sold my car to CarMax for more money than what I paid for it brand new, and that was after 2.5 years of ownership and almost 20,000 miles on the odometer. So I had a budget that I wanted to spend on my next car, and I really didn't want to go into debt. Just feels like there's a lot of uncertainty right now, and doesn't feel like a great time to be accruing a lot of debt, particularly for me just moving into a new house. So I didn't want to spend a lot more than what I just sold my Accord for, but I was willing to entertain buying a new car for the right selection. So as far as car options out there, the next thing you'll find is if you're actually looking for a car, there are not very many car options anymore. Cars are quickly becoming obsolete. And you're going to find that, you know, with Toyota, they're getting rid of the Avalon this year. There are rumors that the Charger, that this is going to be, not the Charger, the Challenger, that it's going to be the last generation for that, that it may only be produced for a couple more years. The Accord sales, if you look on the forum, the sales have been continuing to go down, partially because of supply chain, but they were going down previously, and there's been rumors that this could be the last Accord generation. As far as the Kia Stinger goes, there was rumors it was going to be discontinued last year, but it's going to be kept around at least for another year. So just kind of across the board, there are not a lot of car options anymore. Ford, the only car that they make is the Mustang. So just as a whole, you're not seeing many car manufacturers actually build cars. They're going to the SUVs and to the trucks. So for somebody like myself that is a car enthusiast, it just continues to make it a challenge to find a car. And so you got all these factors working against you right now. You got no new cars being available. You got limited used cars. And got my daughter over there getting into some deep snow. You need some help? Okay. All right, got her squared away there. So as far as car options go, there just really isn't a lot left to select from. And when picking out the next car, the last thing I wanted to do was pick out some boring car like I don't know, like a Toyota Corolla or something that's not going to leave me satisfied. Well, I listed my reasons for wanting to leave the Honda Accord. I definitely didn't want to just go into a boring car that didn't offer any fun. 2 cars back, I actually, coming from my last Honda Accord, it was a 2010 V6 6-speed, awesome car, by the way. When I found out I was having my son over there, my parents were getting rid of their RAV4, and I ended up picking that up from them and selling my Honda Accord for that. And the RAV4 was fine, but it was really no frills, no excitement, not enjoyable. It just totally was not a fit for me. So I didn't keep that car for too long. Ended up moving to Phoenix and then getting a Genesis G80 5.0 Ultimate. So that car was a lot more fun, but ultimately wasn't great, and I'll get to that shortly. So as far as car options go that I actually heavily considered purchasing, there really wasn't many options as a whole in the car industry. And then the options there were, I really needed a sedan for the practicality of the family. And I wanted something that was sporty. Doesn't have to be the fastest on the block, but need to be sporty. And as far as the options I heavily considered, there were really 3. And the first 2 are basically the same platform. It was a Kia Stinger or a Genesis G70. And both of those were appealing to me because they were both offered an all-wheel drive. Forgot to mention that was an important piece of criteria that factored into my decision because of weather like this. And I thought about it, researched it, and Genesis and Kia just isn't really at the quality that I'm willing to accept. So, and as far as what I mean by the quality, I'm not saying they're bad cars. I'm just saying they're not there. And what I mean by that is I had my Genesis G80. It was a 2015 5.0 Ultimate. Had every single feature the Genesis had. The car was fast, really nice interior, drove well, but as far as the features go, they didn't always work. And kind of what I mean by that is the blind spot monitors occasionally would not work. The light would just stay on. It would be, once in a blue moon, maybe once in a couple months, once every 3 months, particularly in the heat. But that would happen. the parking sensors would occasionally false, just randomly driving around. And again, it was rare when it would happen. It'd be like once a month, maybe once every couple months, but it would happen. And then the mirrors, they would fold in when you lock the car. And if I didn't click unlock with the remote, sometimes they wouldn't come out. And then when you'd go to start driving, they would stay folded in. So you'd have to pull over, stop the car, click the unlock button, because it wouldn't work from hitting the unlock inside of the car to get them to fold out. And had that issue. Had the sunroof, had to get repaired 2 times with the car, and I only had the car, I believe I sold it with 23,000 miles on it. And it wasn't a big repair. They had to replace the guides twice, but just I had several minor issues like this, and I only had the Genesis G80 I think for a year and a half or maybe close to 2 years. But basically every month I would have something along these lines. It was very minor, wasn't going to leave me on the side of the road, but it was something minor that I just never have to think about coming from Lexus, Honda, Acura. And you know, I thought about my experience with it, and that was largely why I ended up leaving the platform. Is if you can't tell from my videos, I'm pretty OCD about certain things. I'm OCD about torque specs. I'm OCD about my vehicles and things working right on them. And it's like I would have these little minor things, and it would happen like once a month. It'd be some random minor thing, and it would just never allow me to drive the car without having that seed of doubt in it, like what's going to happen next. So I still ultimately considered the Stinger and the G70 because of anyone that is going to look at these cars. The feature list, when you look at the check boxes, does it have this, and this? It's going to hit every single checkbox, and it's going to be affordable. But I went back to the G70 forums, I went back to the Stinger forums, and basically the consensus is like, yeah, it's really cool, it's awesome when all the features work, but yeah, it's kind of buggy, there's some rattles, there's some issues, you kind of gotta learn to accept that given the price point, and I just can't do that. So that's my take from a first-hand owner of Genesis, and then just circling back, doing the due diligence on how has the quality held up over time, and has it improved in the last couple years since I've had my car. And it's not, man. It's still the same old tune. So with all that in mind, that really crossed that car off the list. And it wasn't really a deep discussion, a deep debate within my head here about whether I was willing to go back. It was like, yeah, I got cut up on the feature list again, like I did when I bought my G80. And then when you revisit, bring up my memories and everything, I'm like, oh yeah, no, I can't do that. So the next car that I considered picking up was a new car that has come out, and it was out of my budget, but was willing to consider it. And that's the brand new Acura TL Type S. And a lot of people that are from the Accord community, there's been a lot of discussion about it. And that car, it's a really nice car. For some reason, it's just doesn't really speak to me with regard to the styling. It's it's not bad. It's just, it doesn't jump off the page to me. And it's a nice car. The interior, I think, is really nice. It does come in all-wheel drive. It's got the twin-turbo V6. So it's a legit contender. So I thought about it, looked up the reviews on it, and ultimately, that car is there's just something about it. It's just not the right car for me. So the Type S just isn't really the right car for me, and I can't quite put my finger on it, but it is not really fast. You'll see a lot of comments if you're on the Type S groups and Facebook groups and forums and YouTube. It's not fast. It's like the slowest in its sports sedan class with regard to 0 to 60. The fit and finish, there's actually quite a few early quality issues, like the puddle lights are guaranteed to go out on that car. You know, there's some rattles, there's some fit and finish issues that I'm sure Acura is going to fix, but it's not quite there yet. And then another thing is that it does have a turbo platform. So I just don't know right now at this point in my life that I trust myself to own a turbo car and not be willing to mod it over the life of its, you know, the life of the vehicle. There seems to be these times that I hit lulls in my life where I have an abundance of time, abundance of money, and a lack of regard for long-term thought, and I just get tempted. It's like if you guys have seen Lord of the Rings, I feel like you know, the turbo is like someone dangling the ring in front of me, and you know, and I feel like I can't stay away from modding it. So that was another factor. I went back and forth just on that alone, and I would see the Stinger, I would see the Type S, and I'd be like, man, I'm probably gonna have to mod this if I get that over time. It's like, but that's not what this is about. So for those reasons, and of course the budget, the budget regarding that Type S is going to be around $60K, and that was just almost double what I sold my Accord for. So that really didn't make a lot of sense. The Stinger and the G70 I probably could have gotten in the low 40s, and you know, that didn't really make it didn't make a lot of financial sense, and it just wasn't the right car. So ultimately, the car that I went for is a car that I don't think any one of my subscribers would ever guess that I picked up. So as far as the car that I selected, I feel that it is ultra practical in terms of having all-wheel drive. It is safe. It's a little bit bigger than the Accord, not a lot bigger. And it's going to be very reliable, I anticipate, just given my familiarity with the platform. I have had 2 other Accords before this one, so I've had a total of 3, and those two previous Accords had a J Series V6 in it. My wife's MDX has a J Series V6, and this new car that I'm picking up also has a J Series V6. The car has really good gas mileage. It is a hybrid, which wasn't a big deal when ultimately looking, but it's a bonus given how much gas prices are right now. And it is formally known as a Legend, but in the United States it is none other than the... Had a technical difficulty there while doing the filming, had a few drops on my lens, kind of messed up the video, so I'm picking up the torch a couple days later. But without further ado, here is the reveal of the successor to my Honda Accord. And it's definitely not detailed. It's been doing quite a bit of driving in the snow over the last few days. But it is a 2020 Acura RLX Sport Hybrid. And I'll just do a walk around and just try to objectively compare this to my 2019 Honda Accord 2.0 Touring with my initial impressions of this car versus my long-term impressions of the Accord. But starting at the front end of the car, and just as a whole, the two cars are really different types of cars. And the Accord is a really sporty looking sedan. I loved how aggressive the Accord's front end is, and just the overall lines of it, and how slanted the roof line is. The Acura is it's a bigger car. It has some sharp lines on it. I think it's sporty, but it's more of a luxury type of look, where I think the Accord is just overall more sporty. But starting at the front of the car, the headlights on the Acura, it's got these dual LED headlamps that are really nice. They work very well. The Accord's LED headlights were awesome as well. I have this big Acura badge, which it's big, but it's actually functioned because all of the adaptive cruise sensors is behind that, versus having that separate piece in the lower grille the Accord had. And then on the Acura, it has this little diffuser, lip spoiler on the front, and the Accord didn't, but I modded it to have one. I think it really adds a lot to the look of the Accord. But aside from that, they both have a decent amount of chrome, which I'm not a particular fan of, and I'm going to address that. Moving to the side profile of the car. It has these 19-inch wheels that I really like, that they're gunmetal and brushed aluminum. And on the Accord, the Touring, I actually didn't really like the stock wheels all that much. I preferred the sport wheels better. So I'm a fan of these OEM wheels. No plans on swapping these out. I think the overall ride height of this, there's more gap in the wheel wells than on the Accord. The Accord was just a little bit more aggressive from that standpoint. And then the roofline is higher on this car versus the Accord being more sleek. So I really like the Accord side profile and just how sporty it looks. I like this as well, but it's not as sleek as the Accord was. So another thing I'll mention is that there are cameras all the way around this car, and that's really cool because one of the killer features on this is it does have the bird's eye view for parking, and find myself using that a lot, and it's very conveniently placed as to how to access it. Another difference is that it has the soft touch lock on all 4 door handles versus just the front 2 on the Accord. And then when you lock the car, it also has the folding mirrors. So that's also a new feature that I have versus the old. And lastly, the remote start key fob works so well on the Acura. The Accord had the remote start key fob, and I never was able to get it work from more than, probably 50 feet away from the car. The Acura has a very long range. I think it was advertised to have 300 feet. So it works really well. Moving to the back of the car, the Acura, I think, has a very nice rear end. It has the built-in diffuser to it. It also has full LED tail lights. I think they're really cool. I'm going to be pulling the badges here soon. But I do really like the back of the Acura. And, the Touring had LED tail lights as well. I don't recall that it had LED turn signals. I don't think it did, but you guys will correct me if I'm mistaken. But, that's just kind of an overall compare and contrast of the two. Obviously, I loved my Accord. It's an awesome car. Looked awesome. I think this car is equally awesome, but they're just really 2 different types of vehicles. So let's go ahead and get in the car. So the first thing I'm going to show is just that this car has a stereo called Krell in it. I'd never heard of this brand. And the stereo factory is night and day better than the Accord. It actually has speakers in the rear and the door panel and in the back deck lid versus the Accord. I was anticipating that I would be amplifying these door speakers, but after hearing this and living with it for a week, I'm really happy with the stock stereo. I'll probably put my sub in the back, but I don't have plans to amplify the interior speakers. So as far as the interior goes, I really like it. It's very reminiscent of my wife's MDX. It's extremely well made. It's very quiet. Obviously, since this is a hybrid, the car is ultra quiet to begin with in terms of engine noise. But as far as the overall fit and finish, road noise, it is quieter. The infotainment center, this is old school, and for this entire generation of Acuras, they were universally denounced over the use of these two screens. I don't have a problem with it, but it's not as sharp as the Accord was. It's not as nice. It doesn't have Android Auto. It doesn't have Apple CarPlay. So with regard to that, you can definitely make a strong argument. It's a significant step down. As far as the steering wheel goes, I love the steering wheel of the Acura. It's got the heated steering wheel. I love the volume dial on it. It's kind of funny how many cars have the click button to adjust the volume. The wheel it's one of those really nice ergonomic things. And then as far as the accessing the bird's eye camera goes, you push the button here, or on the stock, you can push the button there, and that'll access the bird's eye camera. So as far as the shifter goes, it has the brake hold. Just as far as driving goes, when you drive this car, it starts off in second gear. The second gear starts unless you put it in sport. When you put it in sport, it has the V6 firing at all times. And then it does first gear starting, and we'll get going in a hurry. So it has this, fake wood. I actually think it goes well with the color of the interior. On the Accord, I actually really like the HomeLink garage buttons built into the mirror. I thought that was just more ergonomically convenient than having to reach up here. And then I do have a sunroof. It's pretty much identical to the Accords in size. And then going to the rear of the car, there's an electronic shade in the back, a manual shade for the side windows. Doubt I'll ever be using those once I get this car tinted. So just moving to the back of the car, I have my seat fully back. I feel there's maybe an extra inch of clearance to get my kids in and out. It does have heated rear seats, but so did the Accord. Just showing that shade. My kids seem to love it. Me, not so much when they're playing with it every drive. And then in addition to that, there is a hump here for this middle passenger, so I think it's going to be less convenient for somebody to have 5 people in this car than the Honda that had the flat bench. Moving on to the trunk of the car. One thing is that the trunk does pop open all the way when you touch it, versus having to add those aftermarket trunk struts that I did. It doesn't have the power close, which is a little disappointing. It does have this pull handle I had to add to the Accord factory. You'll notice that this trunk is significantly smaller than the Accords. This is 12 feet and the Accords was like 16.7. It was crazy big. One of the reasons is because of the hybrid batteries being here. And then from a utility standpoint, I lost the ability to fold my rear seats down, but I pretty much never did anyways because I always have car seats back there. But in the regular RLX, it has a trunk that's almost the same size as the Accord and has a center pass-through. But obviously with this car, I'm not going to be doing much hauling. I didn't do a lot of hauling in my Accord, so this wasn't much of a consideration. All right, let's see if I can open this guy. So as far as how does this car drive compared to the Accord, again, totally different vehicles. This car, with the power plant that it has, with the 2 electric motors in the rear and the additional electric motor up front with the V6 power plant, it from 0 to 60 is very strong. It feels faster than my Genesis 5.0 did. Add in the fact that it has the all-wheel drive system as well, and it gets off the line and gets up to 60 in a hurry. Extremely smooth power delivery. This has a dual clutch transmission, which I was surprised. I was expecting maybe the same 9-speed transmission that I have in the MDX over here, but the dual clutch it's awesome. It is buttery smooth. Really like this transmission. From a straight line, this car is extremely fast, up to 60. Overall, in the quarter mile, I think it's a little faster than the Accord was. I'm trying to think. I can't recall what the Accord numbers are stock. I believe this does a quarter in 13.6, something like that. It doesn't really matter because I don't do quarter mile racing. With the Accord, the times that I took that, was flooring it to a quarter mile was pretty much never. But I do find myself going 0 to 60 wide open throttle regularly to get on the highway, or up to 80 miles an hour. And this car is a beast up to that speed. So really pleased with the straight line and just overall acceleration of the car. The Accord was also quick. Got to drive it stock after I returned it to stock recently, and it's quick. But this is faster, without a doubt, off the line acceleration. As far as the handling comparison between the two, the Accord is a lot more sporty, even stock, than this. The Accord feels so much more nimble because it's lighter weight, because of the wheelbase. The Accord was a really fun car to throw around in the turns, and it was even more fun after I upgraded my suspension. This car is not going to be like that. In the dry, it handles well. The ride is totally different. It's a soft ride, really smooth. The Accord was a little bit more stiff, but I thought it was a smooth ride also. You can feel the weight of this car in the turns, so it doesn't feel like a car that you're going to want to do any hard turning or hard canyon carving. The Accord, I would feel very comfortable throwing it around the turns in the canyons. And obviously the all-wheel drive helps, and I'm sure if I had some better tires on this, it would definitely perform better. But the Accord is just more sporty with regard to handling. And then as far as the braking goes, you can feel the weight of this car in the braking. It's not as heavy as the Genesis felt, but you can definitely feel the weight in it. The Accord felt so much lighter stopping. Those are some of the initial differences I've noticed. Last thing I'll mention is that as far as gas mileage goes, the Accord, I think I had an average of 22.5 miles when I was doing my mix of like 50-50 city driving, highway driving, which was okay. That was on pump gas. Obviously on E30, I was getting more around the lines at 20 miles to the gallon. This car, with the hybrid, it's getting 30 miles to the gallon. So for whatever that's worth, again, I didn't buy this car strictly or even as a secondary factor because of gas, but it is a nice little bonus that it does so well, given how much power it puts down and its size. So those are my overall initial impressions of this car and my initial compare and contrast between the Accord and the RLX. So as far as what is coming next, I actually had kind of an unexpected episode arise when I was doing all of my parts selling and was cleaning out my oil catch can and thought what better thing to do than go ahead and post some of my findings with how much oil did my catch can accumulate over 3 oil changes. So I think that'll be interesting for some of the Accord owners to make some judgments on whether they think it's worth the money or whether it's not. And then additionally going forward, I have a couple more technical videos about how to troubleshoot, looking at logs and having a methodology to figuring out problems with your car. And then also regarding how did I do my wiring for my stock harness to a LC7i. And then going down the road, there's going to be some stuff happening with this car. Obviously, it's not where I want it to be in terms of having the touches that I would need to really be happy with this. I'm going to be tinting the windows, and I'm going to be putting clear bra on it and dechroming it. And then I ordered a lot of OEM Acura accessories for this car that are also applicable to the Accord. I did a lot of videos for those accessories, such as the illuminated door sills and the spoiler, back when I didn't have my GoPro and I was using like my cell phone camera. And I think even though it's a different platform, getting to see me do it with some better angles, some more experience under my belt on this car will just enrich and you know, that content if you're wanting to do similar OEM accessories on your Accord. So that is going to wrap it up for this week's episode. Really appreciate everybody subscribing to the channel, and I appreciate all the kind words that people have commented, emailed, messaged me about regarding how helpful this channel has been. I recognize and have always recognized this is not the most entertaining channel, but what it is it's technical content, and I think it's very helpful in being able to teach people how to do it yourself. If you want to do these things, what does it really look like? And I know that these videos are good because I had to reuse a lot of them because I couldn't remember the exact trick of the trade, you know, to pull the camber kit or pull the sway bar or the order of operations to install the turbo. And when I went back to my videos after struggling, I was able to see that little trick and do it and solve it. So it's refreshing that a lot of people have picked up on that and you know, have given some appreciation about it. But anyways, that's all I got. There's plenty of more stuff coming soon. I'll see you next time. Take care.